Welcome to On Target. This is part of the Cutting Edge website. Individual shows we do for people over the period of years that we've been on, that when we find issues that no one's covering, or we find issues that aren't being carefully analyzed or looked at, we create these programs called On Target, and they're designed to have people speculate and understand more about that issue and to find out more about it. At any rate, today we're really honored to have two of the top-notch cutting-edge team members on board with us today. Sandy Guinness is the former mayor of Costa Mesa, and she is a civic planner and knows more about city government than anyone probably we know. And of course we have our stalwart Larry Gilbert, who's been with us through the tough times and the good times and all of it. And so we're going to be talking together today about an issue that everyone seems to just say take for granted or not even consider, and that's the impact of the internet and how much more impact it's going to have on our lives as far as the political side of what we're doing in our society. So I'm going to turn it over now to Larry, and he's going to give you a little background about the internet and about what he's discovered in his research.
Okay. Ron, I know in being involved in the electronics industry, I've had my fingers involved in this, and the internet is basically about 2 decades old, and the amazing power that it offers. Where we started out just with chat rooms and emails back and forth, and we had the dial-up before we went to broadband. Where now we have podcasts and videos. It has really brought people together from all over the world. You know, you read that there's 6.5 billion people in the world, and I've read that about 1 billion of them are connected in one form or another, be it through cell phones, laptops, or PDAs, to the Wide World Web.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, because you just got back from a trip to China, tell us what you found out about the internet over in China.
That whole trip was amazing, and the fact that they have jumped into the 21st century without a safety net, as I recently wrote. They definitely have use of it. We walked around with handheld devices. We connected to the internet, so I was able to connect with websites in the United States from anywhere we were in the mainland China. So the technology is being used there.
Were the hotels able to give you internet access also?
Yes, they did. For 100 yuan, which is about $1.50, we were on for an hour, checking our emails and going to websites such as Cutting Edge and the Drudge Report, and it was not blocked. I know the government has got some censorship over there. They're very concerned that they don't want people saying anything negative about the government. But there are so many millions of bloggers.
Now, out of 100, what is it, 1.3 or 1.1, I don't know, billion people, how many people are connected in China?
About 10%.
So about, what, 130 million
There's
people?
over 130 million people in China that are already connected to the internet.
And how does that compare to the United States? How many people here in the United States are connected?
About 240 million.
So really, not that much more.
There's not much more in the States that have yet to take advantage of the technology, but in China, it's just starting. I mean, it's got an unbelievable potential.
Do they have blogs over there?
They've got millions of bloggers.
Millions of bloggers.
Just like us. Millions of bloggers.
Okay, now Sandy, you just started your own blog recently.
Yeah.
Tell us about how a Luddite, such as yourself, determines that it's time to step into the fray.
Well, yeah, I always refer to myself as an electronically challenged Luddite. And
Now tell for the people that didn't go to Stanford, tell them what a Luddite is.
the Luddites are the ones who pretty much were in the opposite of the forefront on new technology. Oh no, don't give us the steam engine. Oh no, those automobiles are unsafe.
Okay, new technology, fearful of new technology.
And I just found that, number one, you put something out there, and maybe your audience is more limited, but it's what you wrote. You don't have an editor. There's no filter. An editor isn't going to decide whether or not you get to express your opinion. An editor isn't going to take parts out of what you express. It's what you said. And I also find it kind of empowering because, you know, you read about those guys way back in, 1776, and Tom Paine, Common Sense, and it's kind of thrilling. And now everything
online publishing, right
corporate, corporate publishing, getting your papers out, that's practically impossible. But online, you can kind of follow that tradition.
One of the things I want to follow up on, the three of us have all been involved in sending our ideas to various newspapers.
Yeah.
And every time that we send for every one we get printed, we might get 20 or 30 that are not printed.
Yeah.
And that's if we're lucky. A lot of times we just don't get them printed for several years just because they don't like you. So by this new technology, if it doesn't matter whether the local problem is solved or not solved, we're going to get that information out to the people.
We hope so. And one of the other things is it's helpful in connecting the dots, because sometimes I read something in the paper and it's like, oh, but I know that guy, and I know that he did blah, 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 and that's not true. You call the paper, well, we already did the story on that. And they're not going to do a follow-up, and they probably won't print your letter. So it's not just opinion, it's actual factual connections that, because of the electronic media, we can find and we can broadcast.
Now, I wanted to ask you, because Larry got involved in a local blog, regional blog, and I got involved in that same blog, and then I got involved in a local city blog. Now, are you on any other blogs than just your own blog that you set up?
No, I comment occasionally, but other than that, this is my first plunge.
Okay, so you decided you didn't want to have any chaos or conflict. You just go ahead and step right out there and say what's on your mind.
Yeah.
Good.
It's my baby.
So has it been fun?
Oh, yeah. It's challenging. I'm still learning how to put in pictures and links.
That's good. At any rate, now back to Larry again. Now, I was talking about the other blogs that you're on. How many blogs are you on?
Well, I was on one where I think that blog has pretty much been shut down, but most of my efforts are on, and I could do a little commercial here, it's the Orange Juice blog. Right. And what I like about it is that there's opinions from all sides.
So for the people that are in China, this is the Orange Juice blog is for the regional area of Southern California in Orange County.
That's
basically.
correct.
So we let the people know where that is. Now, what about international blogging? Have you done any of that?
Whether or not the things that we have posted have been picked up, I don't know. But as far as international blogging, it's all been local.
Okay. So what we're saying is that you could, though. We could virtually go international with other bloggers that are out there. There's Salon.com was a good example of what the first kind of regular news people that weren't kind of allowed to do their normal thing, so they went in and started their own website. And Salon.com is a good example of they kind of self-police themselves, and so they're not so outrageous. A lot of the blogs, though, however, are really kind of scary.
Oh, yeah.
So tell us about your...
Well, I think you need to start off by having a code of ethics. If you're putting out a blog, and we don't have a problem with people signing on anonymously, even though we prefer them saying who they are, or give themselves, I'm anonymous 123 versus 456, so you know if there's the same person coming on over and over again hammering, or you're getting a wider variety of feedback.
And you can follow the thread then.
That's true. It makes it a lot easier if somebody has some form of an identity. I don't care what it is, but you live with that. There's no reason to have stuff on there that your children or grandchildren can't see and read. But beyond that, we don't want to get into censorship. There's some people who are working in the city or a school district that have something that needs to be said, and they're in fear of losing their job. So I can understand that some people have to keep their...
Well, let's help out the grandmas out there that are going to just they're upset about something in their local community or in their state or in their nation, wherever it is, and they want to say something that's on their mind, and they're not and they shouldn't really be afraid to step right up there and say what's going on.
Exactly.
Well, what finally caused you to go over the edge and say, well, I'm going to do this?
Let me think. Well, part of it is I'm very curious. I'm an inquisitive person. Somebody makes a statement and I say, well, where's your backup? There is no backup. So I dig around myself and I find whether the statement was true or not. It's a statement in a council meeting, on a blog, in the newspaper, whatever. And then once I find this factual material, what do I do with it? Like, oh, you know, I'm curious enough about stuff. I'll call up in Sacramento and say, where'd this number come from? And I'll find out the number's bogus, or that there was a different source for it, or whatever. And then also, as I say, I'm one of the most opinionated people I know. And so it's an opportunity to hold forth. And I see our local papers folding, and as a matter of fact, even our major dailies like the LA Times is laying off columnists, laying off reporters, and their opinion section getting smaller and smaller, their letters section getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So the information is getting narrower, and I think through the electronic media we can broaden it again.
One of the things that I thought was interesting is that once you publish an opinion, an article on a blog, the newspapers just go, I don't want to touch it. They just go, I don't even want to be near it.
Yeah,
now, why is that? I don't quite understand why they don't. Are they afraid they're going to have to pay you for it if they copy and put that in as a letter to the editor? Because a lot of times I've just done an article and put it on a blog, and then I've sent the same thing to the newspaper and asked them to print it, and they never, not a chance.
Oh, well, they do that, though, with the different newspapers, too. Oh, well, it was printed in XYZ, well, then we don't want it. They want to be V1.
I got you.
Well, the other side of that, too, Ron, is that they know that when you're a blogger and something comes across your fax machine or your telephone, in 2 minutes you can put out your post, where they're not going to publish until the next morning, generally speaking. So they recognize that we are beating them to the punch. We're picking up stories that they may not cover, and they now have their own blogs as part of the newspaper. So they've gone to free online newspapers, which I get many of every single day.
Right.
Then they have their own blogs. So they're recognizing that the internet and the bloggers are definitely having an impact on their readership.
And what I found that was interesting is also that the major media, the television, all the television shows, all of them, whether they're news or actual dramas or comedies or whatever, they all have a blogging aspect to them now, so that you can make your comments about this or that or the other thing. So our communication virtually has changed dramatically, and now we can get what? Can we get the truth? Is it easier to get the truth now or harder? Because there's more out there.
You have to sift more. You
have to trust but verify, to quote Ronald Reagan. Because there's people out there who have their own agenda. And if you don't know who they are and they're writing, you need to just do your homework and try to multiple source the information and use your own judgment. You know, one of the things that's happening in the media, by the way, that I've noticed in one of the newspapers, they've had a tremendous turnover. And they bring in, with all due respect, new kids right out of school who don't have the history of your city. So they don't have the knowledge that we do of the cities that we live in, so that we can go back and point out what happened in the past. They're coming in cold. Right. And it's a challenge for them, and they've got to start somewhere.
Okay, let's move on to something that I think is important, and that is how a story is reported. Right now, you've got 3 stories, really big stories in the nation that are just, and they're just being. I mean, I don't know how to even explain how they're being reported. You have immigration and the immigration law by this, the set passed by the Senate. Who's to know? I mean, you've got these vociferous people on one side, you've got vociferous people on the other side. Healthcare. They say, okay, this is the part. I mean, I keep going on a rant here, but everybody wants healthcare, free healthcare. Okay, I happened to look at the Democratic debate last night, and they're all sitting there apologizing to each other, and they're all saying, well, I think we all agree that everybody should have free health care. And then just sit around and you turn around and say, well, do you understand that means that everyone will have to, when you give free health care to everybody in the country, that eventually somebody's got to pay for it?
Oh, is that the way it works?
So the bottom line, or the next time that you want an MRI, it could be the year 3000 before you could get there. If everybody had health care. Well, every time that they bring in the immigration people, right, and they're going to give them free health care,